Hi, and welcome to the mountains of western North Carolina. As you've probably already guessed by the title, we're out on the Norfolk Southern S-Line in the Old Fort Loops under a bit of unfortunate circumstances. And while this channel will always be centered around the layout, I want to take a few minutes to share some information about the prototype. Approaching is train 123. Having originated in Illinois and destined for Charlotte, North Carolina, this is the last eastbound through freight to make its way over the S-Line and the Old Fort Loops. Now, unfortunately, with the pandemic and the changing times, traffic is down and NS has chosen to idle this line. With the exception of a daily local, it's going to be quiet to all through freight trains and coal trains. So my father and I chose to make our way out to the loops to see this last train and to document it and share it with you guys. As many of y'all know, we modeled the Norfolk Southern S-Line, which runs between Charlotte, North Carolina, and Knoxville, Tennessee. We grew up on this line and in the mountains, and we've been able to recreate the Old Fort Loops in a lot of the areas that we remember seeing growing up. And we used to be able to pull up to Asheville at almost any time and catch an eastbound freight train or coal train headed over the loops. On May 7th, however, we went out to Asheville one last time to catch the last eastbound freight train headed out of Asheville. Headed east out of Asheville, we catch 123 approaching the west end of Grovestone. This is a siding which is one of the longest on this side of the line, so it was very commonly used back when this line was busier to meet freight trains. It's also a line that we model on the layout, and although it doesn't exactly match the prototype, it's loosely based on it and is kind of part of the prototype freelanced aspect of our railroad. Once freight trains leave Asheville, it's a pretty steady climb up a grade and out of the Asheville area until they reach Ridgecrest, where they go through a tunnel and then begin a descent through the Old Fort Loops. Oftentimes, freight trains and back when they ran coal trains would require helper service out of Asheville. Like I've shown in some of my previous videos, they would be manned helpers which would be added onto the trains at Asheville, push all the way up to Ridgecrest. There the train would stop. Pushers would cut off and return to Asheville while the train would continue down the loops towards Old Fort and its destinations eastward. We're here at Ridgecrest, which is the highest point of the Asheville District. To the left of the bridge, which is indicated by the two white posts on the side of the track, the rail line descends back towards the Asheville yard. And to the right, the rails again descend towards a tunnel, and eventually after that, the Old Fort Loops. It's at this point the trains would kind of balance on the top of the hill as they come to a stop, and the helpers would disconnect and then return westbound back towards Asheville. However, over the past couple years, NS has been running DPUs, or distributed power units, on their eastbound freight trains. And not only does that eliminate the need for helper service on the steeper parts of the line, but it also reduces some of the lateral forces on the line as these heavy freight trains make their way up and down the steep grades with tight curves. We're just a little bit beyond the tunnel at Ridgecrest, and the full length and weight of this train is now descending the grade. Here, the head end is approaching the siding in Coleman. This is a location which we've also modeled on the layout back home. Here, it's about 2 to 3 miles as the crow flies to Old Fort. However, if you follow the rail lines and the tracks, it's actually probably closer to 10 miles as they loop in and out of the valleys and loop in and around themselves as they descend the grade. And in doing so, the engineers for this line were able to keep the gradient to a minimum and allow for easier train handling up and down the Old Fort loops. Here's a scene from our own layout, which is very similar to many of those that can be found along this section of the prototype. And I do want to clarify that there is going to be a local that runs daily over the loop still. However, that just services a small wood chip plant a little bit east of Marion. So it usually only has a couple cars, and for me there's always something that's been intriguing about seeing these long, heavy trains come over the hills in notch 8 as they come up, or full dynamics as they go down. And as the last cars of this train roll through the Old Fort loops, it marks the end of an era. For well over 100 years, these hills and valleys have been filled with the sounds of steam locomotives and diesel engines tackling the Old Fort loops. And on our version of the Asheville District and the Old Fort loops in HO scale, trains will continue to roll. And I think that's one of the reasons that we love this hobby. Not only is it fun to share it with other people, but it's also an incredible way to recreate and preserve memories. When you look at the world around you, people are constantly taking pictures and taking videos to try to capture the moment. And for us, I think this is a really unique way to do so and to really bring that to life. We have so many memories tied to these hills and these mountains in real life, and so many scenes on this layout which help us to remind us of those. Whether it's a truck in a parking lot, a Taco Bell which you could grab for dinner one night, or even a freight car which had some interesting graffiti on it. There's multiple aspects and parts of this layout which are tied to stories and memories from our past that are really fun to have in our basement and that we're able to share with each other and share with others. So in closing, I guess you could say that our layout is no longer modern. Whether it's the number of trains or types of trains, the variety of locomotives, or even the types of signals, as a lot of those have all become standardized and operating procedures have changed on the prototype, we're going to continue to run trains as normal here on the layout. And I look forward to continue to share a lot of our story and our layout with you guys in future videos. So as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you.